and enjoy my fine china. That's my odds. It's not really a way for me to... Well, I guess there is actually. Just move it back. Ready? I don't know. I don't want to be that close to the camera. Feels uncomfortable. Let's see if I can get this to work.
Oh.
Hello. I can hear you. Can I get a check 1, 2?
Yep. Check 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Awesome.
5,
Yeah.
6.
Okay. Gonna put a limiter on us.
Right.
So we don't blow out your eardrums.
Something running in your background? It's like a TV on or something?
There are people talking.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, you can hear them, but I think the compressor, the noise gate's doing its job for the broadcast.
I think so as well.
Yeah. You can hear him, but not me? That doesn't sound right.
So
I see
when I
him not
just
moving.
tuned in, I could only hear you on the left side. Now through Discord, it's fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I can fix that as well.
I'm
Let's
not
put
sure
this
what.
into mono. There we go. Cool. I think that fixed it for people. You don't have to listen to me at the only left side. And then should be balancing Eonblu at this point as well.
All right. Yeah. So
Cool.
now it seems to be good.
Yeah, I
All
think
right.
so. Yeah. Seems like
Perfect.
we're relatively balanced. Yeah, it's gonna be difficult checking guys. I'm only on one monitor. The double monitor is a little too much to pack. So, hello. Hopefully this will be good enough as we dive into StarCraft as well. You can join NA server. The guy before on his list. Just join channel ZombieGrub.
So I can keep an eye on the chat, and if anything happens, I
Oh,
have 2 screens.
okay. Appreciate it.
I have the power.
Yeah, power of being at home. It's a good one. How are the birdies? Oh, the birds that I'm posting on Instagram. They're basically adults at this point. They're going to be pushed out of the nest at any point.
All right. So I checked out the video of you with Lambo for
Yeah.
like the first 15 minutes, and then I realized maybe it's not the best idea because then I will learn about things that are 1.5 years old. So,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not too sure. Do you have like replays? I saw you have Dark versus Beyond from Monday.
Yeah, yeah, I have
Um,
a bunch of replays actually. So, um they should all be recent enough that we can also be in the same replay together. Am I on it? I am on it.
because that was also something I was trying to find some games, and they were all like not not recent, or at least not the ones that I could think of that I watched. So like the
Mhm.
GSL finals are too old already again.
Yep, yeah.
Um,
I have so, in the interest of not only having Dark because he plays the most, we do have Dark, but we also got Rainer and Solar. Check out different matchups. So usually we kind of divide it into like 20 minutes of each matchup, and
okay,
then the whatever time is left over, I'll ask you about your thoughts on the tournament that's upcoming. Um,
sure. I mean, I took a look at the bracket. I basically didn't check anything ZVZ related because I took a look at the bracket first and was like, I mean, I think for the most part, what we're going to see is ZVT.
uh-huh. Yeah. Actually, I didn't think
Um,
about that. I did actually. I messaged Mana about this, and he was like,
mhm.
"I'm just curious as to why you're asking a Protoss. There's not that many in the tournament."
Yeah, I didn't quite have the same reaction. I was thinking, okay, this is I at least can't say a lot to ZVZ necessarily. But
Mm-hmm.
taking a look at Dark's bracket, who will most likely only face Terrans,
Mm-hmm.
besides Australia, and then I can see Cyril and Solar meeting, but I'm not too sure. And then until Monday, or well, just 2 hours ago, basically, when I checked the games from Reina versus Max Specs,
Mm-hmm.
I was not too convinced yet of Reiner,
Yeah, yeah. It actually,
but I really liked what I saw. So maybe we will see some ZVZ in the Group B.
maybe, yeah. I'll still go over it because it's still a matchup that is a bit out
Yeah.
of my depth, but definitely want to go over those EVP matches with Raynor because I was confused. So I have them.
Oh yeah.
I see you on the ESL channel.
Oh yeah. Let's go over those. We can do that
Okay,
for sure
there we
because
go.
yeah, I watched the games just an hour ago.
Great, yeah. Cool beans. So we'll get the chat into this as well. Good work. There we go. Cool.
Right, perfect.
Yeah, so this first game is also kind of ideal because this is the by far the most confusing one.
Oh yeah,
So
I agree. I'm not so sure yet what to think about this one as well.
okay, good.
Because I was surprised to see Dynasty in the first place.
Uh-huh.
Dynasty seems to be well. It's on Sunday. Rainer played versus Maru in the WTL,
Mm-hmm.
and afterwards he hopped into Roddy's chat, and he told me that Ghost River is apparently worse than Dynasty, also for Terran, and I was so confused. I thought Dynasty first was all the way. So yeah, I don't know. We see Rainer just going for the 15-15 on the gold,
Mm-hmm.
which I
Yeah.
think is a pretty good play.
Okay.
If you want to do it this way, because what 15-15 allows you generally is just getting a bunch of drones out earlier instead of taking the third. And
Okay.
if you want to take full advantage of the rich gas and the rich minerals, I think that is exactly what you want to do.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense then. So that's literally the difference between the 18 and
Yeah,
or
yeah,
16
yeah.
and 15.
So this is what I've so 15-15 obviously for me going into AWC it's a bit of a question mark how much we will see it, because I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it was mostly really good because all the Terrans were going Reapers, and well, Protosses were blocking the base, so versus those two things it initially popped up.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like versus Terrans, everybody has been doing just fine with normal hedge first
Uh-huh.
versus the Reaper, Turix Reaper. But what it allows you is, again, to get a few more drones out earlier instead of taking the third. And then, well, not on Dynasty because the base is outside, but generally can hide your tech a bit better.
Okay.
And tech or like hide a bit better what you're doing. Because like you have your wall off or generally some queens in the front, and you get your gas a little bit earlier, so generally you get some form of tech earlier, so you have some options what you're actually doing behind the 15-15.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to checkmate if this is accurate. So if I were to say like, okay, he's doing a 15-15 build here, and he's going to be pumping out a few more drones rather than grabbing that quicker third, and then
Yeah.
has options as far as the gas timing behind it.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
What I loved a lot here from Rainer was he only put in 2 drones in the gas at first, because you don't need that much gas initially, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And just now send in a third drone after his speed finished or his speed started. But yeah, so I was very curious what he was going to do next.
Yeah, I mean, so you actually said that you liked the gold base being taken. is that because you actually think it's good on Dynasty, or because you just
Oh, so
appreciated
no,
the 15-15?
I don't know if I like the gold base being taken.
Okay.
I've seen it very little, but what I liked was going for the 15-15.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because then you can rally your first couple of drones out to the gold immediately, and also you get your gas at the gold up a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And Raynor skipped his gas in the main.
Right. Yeah.
And,
He's getting kind of bullied
this,
here.
yeah, this is really really bad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
because you don't have your third hatch,
Right.
you're starved a little bit for drones. For lava, I mean.
The larva. Yeah.
So losing 7 drones for he lost both adepts, I think, to the Evo block, right?
Yes.
But that's still really bad. And as much as the gold minerals are nice, sending your drones out all the way around the front, this is obviously quite a bit of mining time you still lose.
Yes, that's also something I was considering.
And then the third hedge is super late. I think even for 15-15, and I'm really not sure. I feel like I'm a bit lost on the details on 15-15 sometimes. But even for the most part, you still get your third earlier than this.
It felt awfully late.
Yeah.
And almost as like a. I mean, he was probably legitimately distracted, so he was microing against the Adepts in the main, an Adept comes at the third, and then an Oracle in the main. So he is banking 500 minerals at some point. Then about 200, because he's pumping out drones. The Evolution Chamber block literally took enough to put him below 300. Like, he must have probably wanted to take it at 320 or something.
Oh yeah, for sure. But also, I think the 200 gas is too much.
Oh yeah, geez, yeah.
Especially as Zerg, what is so important is that you need to think all the gas that you're mining, those are minerals that you didn't mine. Obviously, with the rich gas, it's a little bit less so. But that's why you always see everyone take 100 gas and then go out again, because you need those minerals. Yeah, this hatch is just late.
Yeah.
And so what I would imagine maybe is just Raynor tried something out.
Right.
And this has worked in practice a couple of times. And why I was very, very happy to see, or why I'm less critical of Raynor now than I was like 3 days ago. I see a lot more variety from him, which is what I think is what we will have to see at from all the Zergs. Just to have less standard or so I wrote down a bunch of notes. Let me look what I said I wrote exactly. But I think it's just like high percentage plays is what we saw a lot over the years. Like
high
the least
percentage
amount of
plays?
risk.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so like least risk taken while still like doing the right thing. And I feel like right now with the most recent patch that doesn't work anymore.
Okay, what about the most recent patch?
So what was it again? What was the most recent patch again?
It's a good question.
Yeah, it was the
Cyclone change, Liberator change, Sentry change. What was Zerg?
So I think we had the well, okay, the most recent change isn't that big. I think it was the one before with the lurker burrow speed being removed. It was just movement speed now. Oh yeah, exactly. Broodlords basically, or broodlings basically deal no damage from broodlords. So
right, yeah.
That's pretty bad. Oh, and the baneling change. These are like the big ones.
Yeah, so the previous patch, but now we're just kind of seeing it matter, I guess.
Also the maps. Like this is the maps also changed with this current patch, I think, right? Where even before it was like, well, this is not ideal for Zerg. And we might have gone overboard a little bit. So what I wrote down as well is like, I think Zerg is perfectly fine to win series versus everyone. unless we get to the best of 7s or best of 9s, and then I think actually the map pool is kind of brutal for Zerg. Ghost River and Dynasty especially, in the best of 9 is going to be pain.
Okay, yeah.
I would assume we don't see a ZVZ in the finals. I'm not sure if that is a little bit out there, but yeah.
I think it could happen. You know, like Dark's the only guy that can
It
take
could
down
happen.
Serral.
It could totally happen. I mean, it could totally happen. I'm not going to say it's impossible. But yeah, I think from the start, MaxPax also has the gold himself, right?
Yeah.
I kind of liked the idea of going Ling Hydra, and also so the layer lurkers gave me kind of a flashback of, I don't know, 2018 or so, where this was a thing, like 50 drones, just Ling Hydra lurker. But MaxPax shows very well doesn't work, and the early game was just not good enough. Sometimes that is just how it goes. There's not enough creep spread.
Yeah.
I think we tried. So even though we lost these 7 drones early, I think at the time we already had like still built six queens total.
Oh.
So maybe it was 5, but it was definitely 3 on the gold base. And I think that is just too much for then having no creep spread.
For sure.
Also still losing the 7 workers. So I think this, like, I think the game itself is maybe a little bit confusing by how, why are we playing Dynasty? And how did Rainer get into this position? But how this plays out is at least not too confusing to me, because this is kind of, I feel like, the reason why we see Dynasty so little. Because now you can just sit between bases, which is the worst thing for Zerg, right? Sitting between rally points. It's incredibly hard to deal with sitting between rally points.
Everything seemed to really work against Zerg in this particular situation. The gold base was not something they accessed better than the other race that can happen on other maps. The Protoss gets as easily as well. Rich Vespian is negligible, apparently. And then, yeah, the lack of creep spread. I mean, it feels like he could have actually connected, but he focused more on the left. And that's like a very common attack path, I feel like, in TVZ. But, I mean, I guess also just like literally no scouting really on the front lines, or well, I think he actually did scout it. He just couldn't do anything about the proxy gateway.
Yeah, I think he just couldn't really do a whole lot. He probably planned to attack himself.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing else coming behind it. He doesn't have a 4th. Doesn't even have upgrades.
Right.
Like, what is he supposed to do at this point? But I think even, like, considering when he's at 5 queens, like, this is just too little creep spread. Even the one tumor on the left that moved forward, or like between the rocks, that got killed. But like the active tumors are like just one tumor out on the left.
Yep.
And on the right, we only have this one tumor in the main. I don't know. I feel like this is sometimes something where this just happens due to lack of practice on a certain map or with a certain setup. This is what happened initially when all the Protosses were blocking the naturals of Zerg, where it was just kind of overwhelming because you have so little practice dealing with it. And I feel like this is kind of what happened here. It's just there are a lot of things that could have been done better, but how I assume, how are you going to practice this? How are you going to get any Protoss to practice this with you unless you force them in the finals?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I got the impression that he was just kind of experimenting kind of throughout the series, actually, which I'm totally on board for, you know, leading up to the EWC. But it's interesting. Like, I never really thought of Rainer as someone who was,
Resubscription received.
what's the word?
Apparently you are doing something right, Captain.
I don't know, stagnant, you know? Like, when I think of people who have had trouble being too monotonous, you know, I actually don't even think of Zerg, really. You know, there's Serral seems to just do whatever he wants while he's macroing, but he's kind of a outlier.
Yeah, Sarah. I feel like Dark does a lot what he just kind of wants as well. I liked a lot what I saw from him in the finals versus Mario as well, where immediately when you wrote me, I remembered this game on Golden Aura where he just did a Roach Hydra Viper push. Just
Yeah.
it's just Dark things. This only
Yeah.
happens.
I remember casting that and being like, we're old school. We're like back on merry-go-round
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if Raynor needs to experiment, then that's good. But like his EVP, what's your take on it historically? You know, I feel like everyone's been very impressed with his ZVT, and then obviously he has all these epic battles versus Serral and ZVZ. So for me, I always felt like it was his worst matchup, but like it's not terrible, it's just worst out of the three. What's your thoughts on it?
So the reason why I like this series especially is I feel like he was kind of playing the quote-unquote old European style of just playing the standard thing.
Mm-hmm.
And being a bit more free-flowing. Again, I think this is exactly what we need to see from Raynor for him to succeed in ZVP. Because ZVP right now, if nothing happens, I feel like is Protoss favored, absolutely.
Okay.
Which changed from before. I don't think it's too bad, but you know, a lot of the pros would disagree with me, so I'm trying to not get too ahead of myself. But I think throwing like a wrench into the whole matchup, I think that is exactly what you need to do. And yeah, just playing a little bit, like having more variety and the Protoss to worry about more different things. That is exactly what you need as Zerg. And I think if Raynor, instead of playing what I felt like was Katowice and also GSL, where he was playing like he was the better player if he just gets to play standard, I think taking more risks and being a bit more free-flowing again. That is exactly what he needs to do. And I think at the time where he won his world championship, he won against Zest in the finals, right?
Yes.
That's also something where, I mean, his CVP clearly was very good.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought it was bad. Just that, well, you know, I'm going to say, like, in the last year, it seems to be more of the questionable one. And I know that initially there was a lot of agitation from you know, Raynor being the most public speaking Zerg player.
Yes, and I am on the exact opposite end. I got a little bit upset with him being so spoken out about ZVP being bad. And I felt like he was doing too many of the same things.
Gotcha, yeah.
And just kind of expecting to, well, to still get ahead with the same things. And definitely the changes, the small changes over time with the map pool kind of make it hard. I don't want to disagree with that. Just that I don't think it is. I absolutely think it's impossible to win versus Protoss.
Yeah.
Just you gotta be the weird one now.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's an interesting like flip, you know. So that's useful information. Like again, if Serral displays perfectly macro, then I'm not too surprised. But the onus is kind of on the Zerg players now to change things up. Where we see, I don't know, like this from Max Packs, like every game. Well, not this exactly. He did change things up because he was, I assume because of the map and the way that Raynor expanded, but, you know, triple Oracle, Blink, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, so I didn't look into anything Serral.
Well, it's hard to, isn't it?
In particular, it's like, on Sunday he also played WTL again against Ryang. But I also feel like Serral is the least interesting in a sense that we kind of expect him to show up.
For sure.
I like this push out from Raynor. This is very cool because MaxPax was kind of preparing for some kind of queen push with roaches.
Yeah.
Which, you know, kind of expecting is if you expand basically next to each other. but Reynor just kind of got ahead of MaxPax, and MaxPax only is on a single Oracle, so this didn't have enough energy anymore, and Reynor didn't really gear up to push with a lot of queens. He just... And MaxPax was preparing for a bit of a later defense, so this worked out very nicely for Reynor.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it did seem odd that he, like... Well, it wasn't odd, but it did look unfortunate, because it seemed like he was just inches away from getting that proper setup, because he was certainly building towards the defense. But it's an interesting note. He was just... Another Oracle before Twilight actually would have been helpful for that tiny Roach push.
Yes. Yeah, surprisingly, for like
Yeah.
the normal thing, what MaxPax did was really good.
Uh-huh.
Like getting Blink up early, getting multiple batteries. He had another battery and a cannon. I think those both died, and the pylon. Or no cannon, but another battery and a pylon. And those two died. And usually, if Reynor hits a bit later with more units, he's actually in a worse spot. Versus Blink Stalkers specifically.
Mm.
But
Okay,
yeah,
good
this is
note.
just... I mean, this is kind of small. But it definitely caught MaxPax off guard.
Yeah, I know. I think it directly
he's even
contributed
getting
to the
his
loss.
third Oracle just now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he loses out, but he also like. I mean, what do you think about expanding to the front, as opposed to the triangle base from the Protoss?
From the Protoss side?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I watched Pixcast, and he said, well, MaxPax believes he can defend it, so that's why he's doing it. But it's very risky.
Yeah.
I personally always like to mine out the gold minerals myself. I am the exact opposite camp of like, let's just not get too aggressive.
Yeah.
I think, as MaxPax has proven before, if you're getting into, if you get enough repetitions with like all the different ways Zerg can attack you, or like anyone can attack you, then he will at some point be able to defend it properly. So like the one gate in PvP, if MaxPax didn't do it for like 1.5 years straight, he wouldn't be now the best with it.
Yeah, no, he seems like a real...
This Baneling push was wild.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I thought I was not sure what the Banelings were for. Because going into the Stalkers, they won't kill Stalkers anymore. Even with +1. But clearing out the static defense was really nice here. And then obviously forcing the probes either into the army or into the Banelings. Getting some extra damage on like the Nexus, I assume. And yeah, I just liked seeing this again. Caught MaxPax off guard entirely. And we're causing so much chaos that even MaxPax doesn't have a unit in the wall.
Yeah. I was noting that those links could have been used for that as well. But yeah, it all kind of started with the first Roach push, which is a good point about just how early it was.
Yes, very off meta kind of thing. Really surprising MaxPax. And then also again the Banelings. He didn't show the Banelings at all, or the Baneling tech at all, until like they suddenly came from the back there.
Oh yeah,
maybe
true.
they also came from the front. But yeah, getting Baneling speed, getting a bunch of Banelings is like very surprising, because suddenly MaxPax needs to deal a bit differently with that push.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just in the interest of diversifying, so those are the two that I thought were very interesting. But to ZVT, particularly because there's so many Terrans, we can give Dark Beyond or Dark Clem.
Whatever you think.
I think Dark Beyond,
is
because
better here, because I didn't see either of those, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, because I think Clem is really playing differently, maybe because he's leading up to EWC. Like, for instance, he was playing 2-base 1-1-1, which, he 3CCs like 80% of the time. So it felt like he was playing either to experiment or to hide his builds a little bit. Where I actually went over and I was like, I feel like Dark doesn't bother. Like Dark
No,
already
Dark
does
doesn't
too many
care.
things. Yeah, yeah. And then it didn't really look like Bjorn was bothering to either, honestly. Like, I wouldn't have expected Clem to change things up if you had asked me to guess, but just watching his games, I really feel like he's not playing as usual. And then I watched him today get kind of tilted versus Max Pack, so that was interesting. But Bjorn versus Dark should be kind of like representative of their true games if they play EWC. And I'm not sure about
Oh yeah, probably.
Dark Clem.
They will just show up playing whatever they want. Jan because he's very convinced of what he's doing,
Yeah.
and Dark because he doesn't come in with a plan.
Yeah, it seems to be the case, doesn't it?
I think actually Dark comes in with a plan, but like this is always a little bit, yeah. He tends to be inefficient in his execution.
Yes, yeah, to say the least. Actually, while you're here, completely aside from this match, did you read Oliveira's thoughts on his games versus Cyril and Maro's game versus Cyril?
I think I read some of it, but it was a while ago, so
Okay.
I don't remember entirely.
Yeah, so that's going to be what's interesting, I think, going into the EWC. Maybe we've already seen some developments in other tournaments that I haven't watched, but basically Oliveira, a lot of what he did was like if it's a macro game, he just went super hardcore macro, more than we anticipate, right? So instead of like a 7-minute 4th CC, which is pretty nice for a late game, that's I think what Maro was doing. He was doing something crazy like a 6-minute 4th CC. Like it was actually insane.
Yeah.
And so, you compare the two builds, which I did directly, and actually the end result isn't that different, except you have a 4th CC, as far as like how many Marines you have and when you push. So I don't know if you had seen anything else regarding that development, because what I'm seeing still from the Terrans that I watch, like Bjorn and Clem, we're not seeing that Oliveira playstyle. And I was also thinking specifically, like, oh, I wonder if that would even work against Dark, because Dark just like attacks and out of nowhere
Yeah, Dark
randomly.
just could attack you and kill you.
Yeah. Like I think Oliveira specifically doesn't do it versus Dark, but then these other Zergs getting into the late game, I don't see the Terrans doing it. Anyway, just wanted to see if you had any updates on that.
Yeah, no, I think just for example, Clem. I think Clem just plays the same. I think he's just very confident in his CVT, and he is not particularly afraid. Like he doesn't feel the need to switch it up to take something like this. And I feel like he's just very much in his element when everything goes pretty normal and he gets his 3cc Hellion Banshee up. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not too sure. Like we have a lot of Terrans, right? I could go through all of them, but
yeah.
So, I think so. Maybe to have a bit of a more general take, then I think EWC in general will be. I don't entirely know what to expect in terms of builds, because I feel like we've seen a lot more variety in general. And what I really expect to see is kind of similar to Katowice 2023, is that we will see a lot of people choking.
Oh yeah.
I think the stakes are really high.
Okay.
And I think then playing a bit more like Oliveira, where he's taking some kind of risk and he doesn't really get punished by it, because not everybody's playing as crisp. I think that is going to work out very well. Which is why I'm so happy to see Raynor be more be trying out different things for like each game, taking more risks, because I think they will be punished a lot less at a high stakes tournament like this.
Okay, that's a very interesting addition. That's cool.
And like the only one that I'm like just Cyril is going to do his own thing, right? Cyril doesn't really seem to. After he won this year's Katowice, I asked him like why. Because honestly, as someone who tried to become a pro and failed, I was very surprised or I'm very curious, like what keeps him going, and he's just, yeah, it's a job. This is kind of the mentality I think he comes in with. This is his job, right? He's expected to do these kind of things, and like many or like several tournaments ago, he said like, I don't think he doesn't think he's playing better than others, but others play worse at offline tournaments.
Right, yeah, I saw that.
And I feel like this is going to be very true again at EWC. I'm not sure. Like again, it might be that Cyril doesn't can't make it entirely. Even Cyril in 2023 had a slip up, a lapse of judgment.
Yep.
But ever since, he kind of decided this is not going to happen again.
Yep.
So, yeah.
That's very interesting.
And yeah, I'm very curious. I also think the way the group's shaped up with 6 Terrans in the first group and the second group being very mixed, this is going to cause a bit of chaos, I think.
Yeah. I like that fresh take, though,
Because-
you know, because I think a lot of us would come in and be like, well, these guys have been practicing nonstop, specifically for EWC, but, you know, that little twist, which is like, well, actually, they also put, like, tons of pressure on themselves when they do that.
Yes.
And this is the most pressure-filled tournament they've been in, even including, you know, Katowice's and Gamers 8. That's a nice little
Everyone
twist.
has been like talking about how this, or the marketing has been a lot like, this is the largest StarCraft 2 tournament ever. And then we also don't know what's coming next, which is why I think the 2023 Katowice thing was what happened there, because we
Okay.
didn't know what comes next. So I think that's why it's going to be the same this time.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know if the players had any information. That was a weird time because we were basically being told, as far as we had a call, the commentators, that everything was just waiting for the final signature. And then, like, literally after Katowice is done, do we get, you know, kind of like
Oh yeah. I
meek,
remember.
like, oh yeah, well, we didn't get the final signature.
Yes. I remember. I heard, or we were talking about it back then even.
Yeah,
when it
yeah,
was
yeah.
happening.
Yeah, so it,
Oh.
I don't know if the players had the same thing or they were just, like, in the dark the entire time.
Yeah.
Because, like, we were
I don't know
effectively in the
either.
dark. We were wrong anyway, but don't know what they knew.
Man, Dark is supply blocked at 120. What is he doing?
And I know, he wins this game, just to...
Oh yeah, of course he does.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, he gets supply blocked so often. I remember this game, actually, as we're seeing it now. You know, on post-youth, actually... first of all, so Dark, he's actually been really not going roaches the last, like, 3 tournaments that I've seen of him, so past 2 weeks. Do you think that is him experimenting? Do you think that is him acclimating to new maps? Or do you think that, you know, like, the roach game is kind of been there, done that? Like, it seems like it's pretty practiced against.
I'm not sure if been there, done that. I was thinking the Widowmine radius nerf. I feel like that hasn't been abused enough by Zergs yet. I think going just mass link Bane Queen. I think that needs. I felt like this was going to make a comeback, and I feel like we've seen it not enough yet.
Okay.
And just Dark here is going for Hydras. I think he's also going for Lingbane Hydras on this map specifically, just because this is a good map to get your engagements on post youth. As far as I know, is a good Zerg map. But I feel like even just going Lingbane Queen early Hive with Ultras, I feel like that is something that we should see a bit more from Zergs again.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, maybe I've missed something, but I feel like we have not seen it as much as I would expect, because I haven't seen the Terran go Widowmines anymore ever since or not really, just like sometimes a couple and sometimes Drilling Claws, but really not in the same way Clem was playing it like 1.5, 2 years ago with just massling or just mass bio with Widowmines.
Hostile forces
Basically no tanks.
detected. Arming raid defenses.
And yeah, I assume Lingbane is just better versus tanks. And I also always felt like it's especially good versus Atrax. It might not be good versus what Oliveira showed in Dallas, where this just hits really hard and early, and Oliveira doesn't care about creep, he just goes on top of it. So maybe it's not ideal versus that, but I've always thought of just Ling Bane with queens as really good versus Atrax.
Interesting.
And the amount of times we've seen Atrax, I just feel like it is about time. But it could also be the maps. But like Oceanborn, Side Delta, Post Youth, you still have a bunch of open maps. It's not like we're all this is 9 times Ghost River.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think it's a really good point about that Widowmine nerf. But as far as like
Resubscription received.
Widowmines versus
Apparently
tanks,
you are
I think
using
actually
the
this was a
right
series
token.
where it ends up going all 5 games despite Dark like dominating the first 2. I just lost my train of thought. Thanks, Steadfast, for the resub and the train derailment. Dark. Or Roach. What the hell are we talking about? Tanks and Widowmines. This was a series in which we actually, I think me and the chat were talking about like a lack of tanks, actually. Not this game, because this game it didn't matter that he had a bunch of tanks. I think there was a game where he just like had 0, and it really felt like it was poor against the late game battering ram. Excuse me. Oh, and that's the other thing I want to ask you that isn't in this game, I think, or it might be, is Swarmhost versus late game Terran. Actually, I kind of want to get to that game if this is it. I think it might have been versus Clem, but this one's kind of
this is
obvious.
over in a minute. So
yeah, exactly. He gets overwhelmed. Like Beyond just stayed way too long on the offensive. This was.
He went Swarmhost versus late game Terran.
He did. Yes, he absolutely
it's
did.
Awesome.
I've
done that as well.
Okay, all right.
So okay, I think it is probably absolutely a horrible idea versus good players. Like in EWC, I think it's probably not good, just because Locust versus Terran, they die very quickly.
Right.
And generally, what are you going to kill? It's either planetaries or tanks. So yeah, I don't know. Even planetaries, they deal very well with Locusts, just because of their splash and their extra armor. So I don't know. I personally like it a lot because that just means I can trade inefficiently with my army, but I am also a solid 1.5k MMR lower than these people. So, I don't think Swarmhost versus Terran versus mech it's still good, but I don't see why we would see mech honestly, unless it is a Gumiho game where he's very greedy and gets to his late game mech army that is basically unbeatable very early. This kind of thing I can see, but I think generally just Bios is significantly better for just at least keeping the Zerg giving the Zerg something to worry about. I feel like as Zerg you don't really have to worry about anything if you see mech too early. And especially scouting it very early is the key versus mech. And then as Zerg you're just kind of free to do whatever. And I think then Swarmhost can do very well.
Right.
But so Swarmhost in general, they're somewhat mobile, but I think they will even still then just be less mobile than Bio, because Bio is very mobile, right?
Yeah.
And I think in that way, that's why they're generally pretty bad, as long as there's still some element of Marine medevac in the army, because they can just chase them down.
Yeah, it actually overall was a very interesting game, now that I remember it, because it was actually a Command Center first 2-1-1, like literally off of 2 bases. And, you know, I was saying like, oh, Beyond would do that. And then he proceeded not to do anything after. Like, it was literally just the first 2 medevacs. The next 2 barely even came. And so Dark like looked like he kind of over-defended for a little bit, because it ended up being a 3rd CC, double engineering bay. Literally no other pressure came. But at some point, and we're finally getting to the point, like it very clearly becomes one of those, this Terran is turtling against me.
My game crashed.
No, we just got to it. God damn it.
It's fine. I can watch the stream.
Yeah, okay. The 50 seconds it takes for you to. StarCraft is so confused right now. It's dropping you while still
Why did my
playing.
Game crash? Yeah, I can see why StarCraft is confused.
Yeah.
I'm also confused. I don't know the last time my game crashed.
Well, you've never times 8, 15 minutes, I guess. I don't know.
I
Something
mean, that generally doesn't cause any issues for me. I don't know
Yeah.
why. Oh well.
Who knows? But like, yeah, it's not super important, I guess, for you to watch it every detail. But Riley, the guy was saying, it just like Bjorn wasn't doing any move outs. Like he was barely even getting creep spread pushed back. Like it was kind of.
Yeah.
It was so obviously turtle, right? Because you say late game TVZ, and I think there is still sometimes that really awesome, truly back and forth play, that we remember from Clem Serrel or something like that. And then there's what happened here, which is exceptionally boring to cast, which is just literally like interesting build order. Nothing happened from it. Okay, 20 minutes of nothing. And then the next interesting thing that happened was indeed the swarm hosts. So, like, I 100%. Know why swarm hosts are bad against bio, and they do end up being like exactly what you were saying. If you have any amount of marines, or in this case like marine ghost, like the swarm host locusts actually just don't break that. So even if they found tanks by their lonesome, like it hardly even lasted long enough. But the interesting thing, I guess, was that Dark got to an incredible number of bank because there were so few interactions, and then he added swarm hosts, so his bank continued to increase. And I watched the whole game, saw it, finalize in Dark's favor, and I was like, the swarm hosts, they never once had an impressive swarm host attack, They didn't kill an Nexus or a command center.
Yeah.
They didn't kill, 10 tanks. They barely even killed 2. I was like, what the hell are they for? But then I legitimately started thinking, repair money. Like, the Terran almost, has a much harder time getting a bank. That's just the truth. But sometimes they'll start to bank maybe, 1,000 minerals towards their maxed out and extra SimCity and stuff. And then that'll be useful for making up for a slightly worse engagement. But with swarm hosts, I mean, that is literally repair money. Whether you're repairing your planetary so it doesn't die, or trying to save an orbital before you can get around to lifting it, or whatever it is. So I legitimately wondered if this is actually a really good bridge idea where you're like, okay, either I could spend 50 lings doing this and causing maybe the same repair, or they actually kill it, whichever one. But it is 50 lings. It's however many minerals that is. Compared to locusts. And it's nothing impressive, but it is consistent. I don't know what your thoughts on it.
So far we don't see any swarmers, right? But what's the unit count like?
We're getting into lurkers again. It's 91 drones, 8 lurkers. 100 lings just tried to overwhelm them.
Oh yeah, there's the unit. Oh my god, it's 15 tanks, and we just lost 4.
Yeah, it hit so many tanks.
I'm not sure about the repair cost, because repair is very cheap, right? It's 1/4 for the whole unit to be repaired up. So you kind of need to damage 4 tanks entirely, and they need to get repaired up, or you just kill one. So yeah, I feel like but I feel like this is kind of, oh my god, it's even 17 swarm hosts.
18.
And 17 swarm hosts not being, or 18 not being impressive. No, so didn't some already finish? Is he going? Oh god, he's going up to 21, right?
No, it's 14 plus 4. It's 18.
Okay. Okay. I got a heart attack almost. Because going past 16 is already a bit much on the supply, and he's on 92 workers.
Right? Yeah, I was like, the supply must be abysmal. This is insane.
It really has to be. Yeah, I don't know. So I feel so what I was thinking about, again, I was thinking about swarmers myself, because again, I'm worse against late game Terran, and my opponents are generally worse at their late game Terran than the top level, right? And I would go up to 10, because I feel like, okay, the 10, then I don't need to go up to 90 drones instead, and can have a bit more in the army department. And some of that is just then swarm host. And I would use it to specifically target planetaries, because I feel like planetaries are the one thing that Zerg doesn't really have anything. Maybe lurkers, but other than that, it's really hard to kill planetaries efficiently. And oh, I feel like that first wave did quite a bit of damage. It's almost
It actually killed 3
like-
tanks. I thought I only killed
Yeah,
2.
they are really, and they are really cheap, right? For just they're less than 200 resources, right? 175. So it's really just the supply cost that's atrocious about them. And as soon as there is like enough bio, but I feel like versus this many tanks, I kind of like it. I don't think
Yeah.
this is something that we will see. I can't imagine this is something that is like a good play by default. But when I look at the minimap, Dark just has everything.
Yeah.
And Bjan is just kind of doing the Terran thing of like, oh, maybe there's a chance, even though the Zerg has 2 of my bases right now occupied, maybe there's a chance. And that's kind of where you can see Swarmhost at least getting enough value over time to be annoying and just to buy yourself the time to mine out the bases. Because it takes time to deal with Swarmhost.
I was also thinking because, like, so in this game, there's just like already a really naturally high tank count. 17 tanks is good stuff.
Yeah.
But in general, the epitome of late game Terran is mech. We see that Hellbat added, we see the Blue Flame, we see Liberators, like and Thors. It basically becomes mech Ghost. So I was like, also like, well, Swarm hosts are still considered okay against mech. Is that also something that could be at play here? But then notably, like, these did not come out when there was already like Thors being produced or something like that. Like this came out after he tried a lurker attack. And then he transitioned to
That wave is
Swarm.
so bad.
No, I swear to God, the Swarm hosts actually were not impressive. I didn't realize the first
wave
2.
was so bad.
The first 2 were actually okay, but I swear to God, the
Yeah.
rest of the waves don't do anything.
That is this is truly dark. I love it.
Yeah.
This guy is getting his Swarmos and is just throwing them in the throwing the locusts in the meat grinder instead of like, I especially also this is something that I see right now. What is obviously really bad with Swarmos is generally you want to be able to rotate. With sensor towers you can't rotate with Swarmos. They will not really come from a surprising angle, or the locusts don't have any time left. Like, this is really, really hard getting around. Like, even the edges are covered with sensor tower circles.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
So yeah, I don't know how you would be, because then again, like, I feel like versus like planetary walls, they are great, but there's not even planetary walls here. So then how are you ever going to do any damage? Because you can't be, you can't surprise Beyond here with this Swarmhost.
No. I mean, in fact, what usually I would say does the most damage are still those Linghorn buys. So
Yeah.
that second Locust Wave only cleaned up the first, to be fair. He never repaired the tanks. So he could have
That
saved
was
4
nice.
tanks. He could have
Like,
saved
it's
them.
18 Swarmhost.
It's a
Yeah,
lot.
and
And the Lings get so much done. I mean, I understand you're sacrificing them, you're trading, but this game actually gets like kind of close, believe it or not, despite Dark's overwhelming position in the game.
Oh no,
And
I believe it immediately.
I was prepared to blame the Swarm host, but I tried to temper my bias ineffectively, but still.
No, I think this is just this is kind of Dark doing Dark things, and I like the theory of them as well. But I mean, I genuinely think as well the position just allowed for the Swarmos to look not god awful, because Dark was already in a way better position. Bjorn was down to like 4 bases and a half mining. Like he lost his bottom base. Dark has taken over the entire map. Like the Swarmos are kind of just forcing the game. Oh my god, no! They are just forcing out the game to be longer. Instead, he could have at this point genuinely just spent his bank fully on Ling Bane probably and just ran over.
I mean, that's what I feel like.
Tries to expand.
There are so many more opportunities where Lings could have jumped on things very efficiently.
Yeah. If it was just like you only really need Lings versus this many tanks.
Yeah, right.
And if there's Hellbats, then like then not only with Hellbats do the swarmers become a lot worse, but the lings also. So like, yeah, I wouldn't suspect any swarm hosts in in versus bio type games. Yeah, I assume they're all just better than that. The only thing that is kind of interesting to me as well, where yeah, I feel like versus like ultra late game Terran or Protoss, if you get into the game even, I feel like or into an ultra late game, basically even a Zerg, I feel like you're already dead.
Okay.
And if you're like relatively ahead, this might not be enough. It also depends a bit on map, but I generally feel like Zerg needs to be able to finish the game earlier now.
Okay.
But and this is something where I thought it was kind of funny that you said, you want to hear some Zerg bias. I think it is way better for the viewers if Zerg needs to make something happen in the game. I think it
Yeah.
is way better for the viewing purposes that Zerg is the one that need to kind of make something happen, because generally if they get out of control in the mid game and then they sit back, this causes for some really boring games.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
as much as I can understand the frustration of dealing with especially with like Tor, Liberator, Hellbat and Ghosts, if the Terran doesn't get there, which is frustrating, but if they don't get there, then this makes for better games.
It does. Yeah, I know. I was kind of joking with the Zerg bias, but mostly what I mean when I say that is, there's always an unconscious bias that we, know more about
absolutely.
something, or we just play that race. And I feel like I personally miss out on the opportunities to talk more from the Zerg's point of view than the Terran.
Yeah.
Unless it's Dark, because Dark is interesting. So that's usually what kind of pulls me back. But if Cyril is just doing his macro thing, then I just, I can see that as not
Also-
interesting, even if you guys, you Zergs, are like, oh no, but this little change thing is really good.
Yeah, exactly. So I can see for like Dark and Shin, like the things that they change up are kind of obvious.
Yeah.
Or like where it's kind of especially weird. Well, for Cyril, it's like genuinely the details. But then the reason why I also get very excited about this, same with Raynor in the series versus Max Specs. These details suddenly lead to like complete storms. The Crimson Court game, I was genuinely thinking that's really cool what he did there with the early pressure to catch Max Specs off guard. And yeah, oh my god, what is this? Sorry, go ahead.
The first thing I wanted to say in this game is that we had 2 Reaper opener instead of 3, which was a bit of a change. But then Dark lost his Overlord, and I thought that was incredibly obvious that it was gonna die. Like, because it was 2 Reapers, and then he made the add-ons, and I was like, well, the Marines come in. Why aren't you moving the Overlord? I'm not wrong, am I? Like, he just made a mistake. Okay, cool.
No. So I think this is also something where I do again nerd out a little bit when I see this from Sarah, where he just has his overlords in the most safe places that are so far away from the Terran base, and we're like, what is he ever going to do with that? And then he gets in scouts at the right time with the overlord and sees everything he needs to see, and I'm like, I would never be able to do that. I had this moment at the Home Story Cup where he was talking about too many Protosses are doing like weird things. And I was like, just send your second overlord across the map. And he was like, nah, that's bad. Then you don't see the adepts, and you're like, okay, then send it out a little bit later. Like, why does it matter? And it's like, no. I think I'm not sure if he did it because we talked about it, but he did it actually in the game. Which I was very proud of, but it might have been also, again, a detail that I didn't notice,
right.
Which is why he did it in that specific game and not the others. So, and yeah, the thing about bias, I feel like I'm definitely looking more at the Zerg side, which at least in the last year has resulted in me being way more critical. than actually being biased towards Zerg. We're like, oh my god, no wonder you're losing this game.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is not fair because obviously they're all trying. Nobody is here to lose games. That would
Right.
be very, very rude.
Very questionable. Yeah, we have a word for that, but should not name it. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like, if I play a lot of StarCraft, I tend to be a little more critical and have to pull myself back, which is legitimately one of the upsides of not playing a lot of StarCraft. I think there's always got to be a mix for a good commentator, but yeah, like I would say Wardy is, close to being unbiased in every way, but still maybe a little Terran, right? Because that's what he started with. But because he just doesn't, he casts so much, he doesn't grind away 12 hours a day as a Terran and then complain that the reactor is 2 seconds late and this guy's worse than him. Like, that's insane.
He's going to be biased for the people showing up late for games.
Yeah. This game was actually kind of interesting, but I think I understood it. I was actually mostly interested in your thoughts on Alcyone as far as the 8 racks goes, because I feel like this was one of the first games I saw someone not 8 racks. I think he doesn't 8 racks. And I'm like, why? Because it seems so good. Like, every Zerg player I've seen, even though they know it's on the way, it's almost like, not quite as bad, but it is almost like Immortal Sentry. I remember back in the day being a Zerg for a year, guys, for a year. I've never been Zerg since 2011. But during the height of Immortal Sentry and getting the guy just being like, I'm going to Immortal Sentry you. And he did it, of course. And it won, despite all my efforts to defend. Of course, I was a terrible Zerg. But anyways, the 8 rack seems very powerful on Alcyone. Is there a reason we wouldn't see it there? And are there Zerg players who are starting to show dominance against the 8 racks on Alcyone? They're starting to figure it out.
So I feel like Dark also here. At least this is kind of what I would suspect. He's going Muscling Bane. He's already getting his macro hedge up early. He's got a lot of queens. He did go up to 5 gas, which is a little bit much, but maybe he's not. It's a thing that Dark does, I guess. But then I would suspect this is pretty good in theory versus Atrax.
Oh, that's right. He loses before we even get there. Sorry.
Yeah. It's all good. So what I was thinking about, and what I saw also from Raynor versus Maru on Sunday, is that he mined out the minerals next to Maru's third, kind of sneakily, with a drone. Went for a huge run by, dealt a lot of damage. And I feel like in general, this is something that, again, I feel like we haven't seen enough anymore, is Zergs trying to take out like rocks and mineral walls really, really early.
Okay.
I would assume some of the tank positions are still really, really hard to deal with. This is still a good Atrax map. But I feel like if you take out the minerals, maybe even in the middle, and take out the rocks next to the gold, all these are like very easy to take out. They just need a little bit of effort. I feel like you could deal way better with like catching reinforcements, or getting a run by setup. The Atrax, I think, is always then very strong when the Terran is entirely undisrupted and just gets to do his thing. Which Alcyone lends itself to very well because of like if you leave the rocks and the minerals alone. But I feel like as soon as you hit a bit of a critical mass as Zerg, because you delay the Terran somewhat, just by like 15 seconds probably even, 10 seconds at this level, honestly. I've seen Atrax also fail pretty badly. It's just been a little while. Because whenever we see the Atraxes that we remember, it's like the Sarah versus Oliveira one, where Oliveira hits really hard. He hit earlier than all the other Atraxes. He had a build specifically prepared.
Right.
We got like no cloak and only a few Hellions, and like he hit that. This is why he hit earlier, right? So yeah, I feel like Atrax relies a lot on just being basically left alone for the first push. And then sometimes the game ends up in chaos. But whenever there's like a critical mass for Zerg, and a good engagement, it feels, it feels really strong. What comes to mind as well is like the two base 5 rex that was very common on the waterfall map pool, where if the Terran did
Yes.
their push like completely left alone, it seemed impossible to hold. As soon as the Zerg was able to buy a bit of time and just delay the Terran further and further, while not making mistakes in the macro department, they would just destroy it suddenly.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, this is how I feel like.
Mhm.
And again, I think in general, Zergs need to start taking out more rocks and mineral balls on these spaces again, and then I think it's not that bad.
That's
Mhm,
very
go
important
ahead.
context. Yeah. As to why this is a difficult map for it. But I think what I saw from Dark later, or another Zerg, I don't remember, but I think it was Dark. We had a
Mhm.
Zerg player on this map take a horizontal expansion path. The 5th
Yeah.
base was taken at the triangle. I think it was Raynor. Yeah. But anyway,
Yeah,
versus Spirit, I think. Yeah, that must have been it. What do you think about
good
that
chance, yeah.
instead? There's
Yes,
obviously
I agree with that.
yeah,
I think
okay, you
that
think
is
it's a good idea.
also a way to deal with that. So this is also something that maybe was kind of at a time just kind of Zergs got way too used to taking their triangle third. And at the time, I was the one who was like, "Why would I ever take the triangle third? It feels so bad."
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, I'm the one who's like, "I really like the triangle third." But I remember that like in the times of, this is really long ago. This must have been then 2017 of Abyssal Reef, where Elaser took like the front base as his third, which looked really really awful. Like not even the front, which had the high ground behind it, but like
Uh-huh.
even further out. At a time where the like 3-Rex Reaper was very common. And I feel like switching up your
Oh.
expansion patterns is also a way how you can make these builds not necessarily worse, but the Terran has way less practice with it on
Yeah.
dealing with a certain expansion pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And then might mess up their tank positions more often or something.
Yeah,
So
that's a good point as well. There's the obvious kind of like, what does this mean as far as the expansions? But then there's just literally this isn't done that often. So Terran
yes,
players have to kind
yeah.
of readjust. Yeah.
Yeah, so like the push path on Alcyone is like right through the middle, but what if
Mm-hmm.
the fourth base is the one with the rich gas even? What if we go this crazy? What what's the turn? Where's the turn going to push? Like,
Yeah, yeah. They try because that sort of happened, I believe, but it did get a
yeah,
little weirder, and I think it is just like actually worse for the Terran to go over that direction instead of through the middle,
yeah.
because then you
But
also
it
have a little more
getting weirder
openness.
is
But
exactly what you want.
yeah, that's a very good point. It has already been an hour, so
Yeah.
we didn't go over every matchup, but like you said, there might not be ZVZs anyway. I'll let Pig handle anything there anyway.
I think ZVZ is going to be the same as it has been for like the last 1.5 years. I feel like ZVZ has changed not at all. There was a time where I was very,
Uh,
very interested in ZVZ, in like how this weird interaction of like two base and walling off works versus going 3 base and all that kind of thing. And I feel like we've seen absolutely no development, but maybe I'm wrong. Like it's all just either some roach stuff, or some Ling Ravager with +1 armor.
right.
And there's very little new stuff to talk about, I feel like.
How has it been that long since like the typical 3-hatch then fast +1 missile into Roachhorn? Because I feel like that's the only thing I've personally noticed in the last. I thought it was the last year, but maybe I'm wrong. Where I felt like we had more ZVZs that had a basic 3-base +1 missile into Roach structure, and now I'm seeing so many
Always get
ZVZs Roachhorn
with a
first and maybe no
third
evolution
hatch.
chamber.
With a third hatch, you would always get your Banelingness, right?
Yes, sorry, Baneling. Yeah, that was the assumption. Sorry.
Unless the other guy is going 2 base, which sometimes there are scenarios where you skip your Banelingness then.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I feel like ZVZ has just not gotten as much attention just because I feel like maybe the reason is not necessarily that ZVZ itself is kind of figured out, but rather that we don't have that many Zergs. So it's like
Yes.
I don't
Yeah.
know, like Cyril, Raynor, and Lambo and Elaser, and they all know their matchup against each other very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Solar and Dark, and I mean Ragnarok or Shin, who all know their matchup very, very well. Like Solar and Dark have had so weird series,
Yeah.
all the time, all over across all these years. So maybe that's kind of why I feel like ZVZ has been less interesting to me as well.
It's so
So
funny because I think now that I remember it, I sent you that video of Lambo and his lesson.
mm,
I think that was 2 years ago. I think that was 2020.
one
That might
and
have
a half it
been
was
1.5,
for
yeah,
I
for
am done with
2023.
2023. Yeah.
So yeah, that's like almost exactly the time period that you said, but he says the exact same thing
Yeah.
basically, which is like we all like if we want to practice EVZ, we're playing against people that we're going to be facing, so we don't practice with
Yeah.
them. So then you have a lot of like hidden strategies and yes, mind games, but then not having played in a long time, and that seems to have stayed true since then.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
think I agree. Yeah, my time perception is all types of whack though. Like things that were a year ago
Yes.
or 5 years ago.
Yeah, the time perception in StarCraft has been very weird for me as well. Things have been weird ever since online era.
Yep.
And yeah, so my first thought looking at Dark was like, hey, he won his Valencia, right? This is over 2 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
If Dark manages to clean up his early game just like he did in Valencia, then he's going to crush. Oh wait, this is 2 years
It's
ago.
funny because people would be like, wow, your memory's so impressive. And you're like, no, my memory apparently just has huge gaps in it. I thought this was like last week. That's why I remember it so well.
It was so exciting to see Dark actually have a good early game for once. That's why I remember it so clearly.
God, I remember that being just a terrible finals. God. I mean, it was game 7 and it was interesting, Maru Dark, but it went on for so long. That's why I remember it.
Yeah, that was the map pool with the. I don't remember the name of the map.
I don't remember the maps, but it was mech. Like Maru actually played 3 games.
Yeah,
mech,
this
so.
was the did some Broodlord shenanigans where he killed his own broodlings at the time. I think that was the time period.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't remember that map pool would be. Anyways, I gotta actually go talk to Lambo. So thank you so much for giving me an hour plus of your time, Eonblu. I appreciate it. I might hit you up with some more specific questions on Discord.
Yeah, feel free.
This was very valuable. Yeah, no problem.
Because I didn't look too much into EWC before because I'm busy.
Mm-hmm.
But now I got really excited because I looked at the bracket and was like, wow, that's all the good players and coffee. Sorry, coffee.
Wow. I mean, I would have said it that way, but.
But no, I was just very excited looking at the bracket and looking into the players some more, which I think wouldn't have happened otherwise. So thank you as well.
Yeah, go ahead and send me your PayPal as well so we can get evened up there. Appreciate it. So I'll see you later, dude.
Right. Thank you.
Yep.
Enjoy.
All right, guys, thanks for hanging out and watching. Maybe you guys learned something too. For me, these things, maybe I don't specifically learn like at 4:30 something happens, but getting that type of outside perspective, helping to kind of cover all your bases when you cast, I think this type of stuff really helps me. And Zerg's just my weakest, so I like finding whatever Zergs I can. And a lot of the best Zergs don't speak English, or they're in the tournament, or I can't say the other reason, but you guys will find out soon as to why I'm not going to be broadcasting my little lesson here with Lambo. So it's a secret. Shh, don't tell anyone. But I might record it and put it up later if he's cool with that or something like that. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. More news on EWC in the future. I may or may not be casting. I just love StarCraft. I just love preparing for tournaments I'm not even a part of. Anyways, thank you all. Thank you for the resubs as well. Sorry, I know I missed one. I don't have Streamlabs up. I want to say it was. No, I forgot. I can get it. I can get it. Temla! Thank you for the 16 months. All right. Thank you, Sid, first for that big raid. Appreciate it, guys. I will see you all, I think, actually Thursday for Mana's lesson from the Protoss perspective. Oh, and I might see you later today for some Dungeons and Dragons with the crew. Bye, guys.